Hey legends, hope we're all doing well. I've put together a small presentation for you guys to just touch on some of the common mistakes that I often see which are going to hinder your fat loss progress. So we have a few points to run through. So I'm just going to briefly touch on all of them. I'll try and keep the video as short and sweet as possible, but sorry if I go off on a little bit of a tangent here and there. But yeah, let's get into it. So 15 common areas which are often seen from my coaching experience that hinder fat loss progress. So as we run through the video, what I would like you to do is keep a score. So I want you to listen to the points that I'm running through and give yourself a tick or a cross depending on how you feel, whether you are on top of that area and whether you're currently getting the most out of that area. So at the end, this is going to give you some practical areas to improve on, and if you need any help with that, obviously you can let me know. But yeah, I think it'll be a good exercise for you to just give yourself a score, see how we're doing and how we're performing in each of these areas. So keep score. All right, so we're going to get straight into it. Number one, problem: not accounting for the calories contained in dietary fats. So for those of you who have read the nutrition info pack, which I will have given to you, you should know by now that dietary fats contain 9 calories per gram. This makes them the highest calorie per gram of all the macronutrients we commonly eat. So the macronutrients being protein, fats and carbs. And we have a fourth macronutrient, which is alcohol. So if you think about it, dietary fats, or foods which are predominantly made up of dietary fats, for example, nuts, people like to snack on nuts, fruit and nut mix, this kind of stuff, trail mix. These are super high in calories because a lot of the calories are coming from fats. It's a very small amount of food, so in terms of food volume, we're getting a very small amount of food. When we're cooking, for example, and we're pouring out oils, for example, olive oil, this is a big culprit when it comes to people grossly underestimating the amount of calories that they're consuming, because it's a very small amount of food, but it is high in calories because for each gram, that is 9 calories per gram. So when we're cooking, in particular things like oils, let's make sure we're being as accurate as possible and we're not overestimating. Whenever we cook, we don't actually need too much oil. Generally, high fat foods, the fat is in there to make things taste better. Often things like takeaways, for example, they are filled with fats because it just makes them taste good. So be vigilant with portioning anything which is either predominantly fat or the macronutrients are made up of lots of fats. So nuts, a prime example, things like butter, olive oil, avocado, these are very high fat foods. And yeah, for that reason, we want to be super careful that we're not just blowing out our daily calories with too much fat by not accurately measuring. So for example, when you're cooking, if you have a teaspoon, this will normally be about 5 grams or 5 mils. And this is a perfect way to just make sure that we're not just pouring that bottle in as we cook and massively overshooting our calories for the day. So every single gram counts, and it is best if you can be accurately measuring your fats whenever you cook. Snacks, for example, nuts, we want to portion those out, not just picking handfuls from the bag. So I would highly recommend you create a little bit more awareness around foods which have lots of fat in them, some of those examples I mentioned, and get super accurate with your portioning of those foods, because that is the quickest way to overestimate or underreport, I should say, your your calorie intake for the day. Okay, so let's move on. Number 2, not maximizing NEAT and using it to your advantage. So what is NEAT? NEAT is non-exercise activity thermogenesis. So this covers all movement outside of your training sessions. And when we look at your total daily energy expenditure, so this is all the elements which are combined to make up your energy expenditure every single day. So this covers everything from your BMR, just existing. We're going to touch on this on one of the upcoming slides, but it's worth noting that the NEAT element of 100% of your daily energy expenditure covers 15%, and this is a big chunk of your what is in your power to control. This is a big chunk. So your actual training covers around about 5%. So this is your planned gym sessions. That only covers around 5%, whereas your NEAT covers 15% of your total energy expenditure each day. Now, how can we maximize this? What we can do is just move as much as possible outside of any of our training sessions. And as you've probably heard, or if you've read the nutrition book, a good step count is a surefire way to make sure that we get away from sedentary and we go towards active. And we want to try and strive for this every single day, particularly where fat loss is a high priority. 8,000 to 10,000 steps would be a really, really good target to land yourself in every single day. And as I said, that is going to take you away from that sedentary bracket. Those of you who do an office job, this is so important. A lot of people who struggle with fat loss, when we dig into their lifestyle and the kind of things that they do, they work in an office. You might take a few steps around the office. People obviously recently have been working from home, which again makes you even more sedentary. We're not just doing those things like walking to the train station, walking around the office, maybe walking around the city, for example. And this just makes you more and more sedentary. As well as that, if you get home and the first thing you do is sit on the sofa, again, sedentary lifestyle. We want to try and get away from being sedentary and just try and be as active as possible. People often undervalue the impact that just generally being on your feet can have on your energy expenditure. Walking is hugely undervalued when it comes to fat loss. This is something which doesn't impact your recovery an awful lot. It's not hard to do. Walking is free. It's accessible to everybody. So there is literally no excuse other than having absolutely zero time, which if you think about it is probably, that's probably not really true. Everybody should be able to find 10 to 15 minutes, 1, 2, 3 times a day to just get a few steps in. So whether we break up our working day with a 10-minute walk every couple of hours, that will be a great way to build in some activity into your day. Or whether we just go for a walk early in the morning or in the evening after our dinner, we want to be mindful of the step count. And activity trackers, whether you use your phone or a watch. For example, I use a Samsung watch. I don't use this for tracking my workouts really, because these are proven to overestimate how many calories we expend in training. But what they are useful for is being mindful of your steps. And if fat loss is one of your high priorities, which for many of you it is, then we simply need to just move more. We don't necessarily need to just train every day. What we need to do is be mindful of all of those hours outside of your training, and we just want to try and move as much as possible during those hours away from the gym. So understand that is a huge chunk of your energy expenditure. And when you get that right, it actually makes a huge difference. So please try and hit your step targets. Don't underestimate how important this is. So here we've got a little breakdown of your total daily energy expenditure, and this is taken from one of the pages in the nutrition book. So here you can actually see your BMR. This makes up around about 60 to 70% of your total daily energy expenditure, and your BMR is more or less out of your control. This is the energy that you require if you were to lie in bed all day and do absolutely nothing. Your body has to run through lots of different processes, just basically existing. So breathing, pumping blood around your body, cell regeneration, hormone production, all this kind of stuff. That is your BMR, and your body will need to do that just to keep you alive. So that 70% is more or less out of your control. But from 70% up to 100%, as you can see there, the next biggest chunk is your NEAT. So as I was saying, this is 15%, as opposed to in the top red band there, you can see EAT. This is exercise activity thermogenesis. So the NEAT being non-exercise activity thermogenesis. And we can see there the importance of that chunk. So if you consider that top 30% as the stuff which is really in control for you to manipulate in order for you to reach your fat loss goals. Okay, so your NEAT is something which we absolutely want to stay on top of. We want to maximize this part of your daily activity for the best results. So you really should be leveraging this if you want to accelerate your fat loss results. Okay, let's move on. Number 3, so the problem I often see with people struggling to hit their calories, or stay within their calories, I should say, is not eating enough protein. So if we don't hit our daily protein target, we are missing out on a huge benefit of consuming a high protein diet. So I often say to people, protein, we want to consider this as the fat burning macronutrient. So again, macronutrients being your proteins, fats and carbs. So protein being the fat burning macronutrient, because every macronutrient has a kind of metabolic cost with digesting and absorbing that particular macronutrient. So in the next slide, you're going to see the amounts or the estimated amounts for each of the macronutrients, but protein is the highest. So what happens is, if we were to eat 100 calories of protein, so 100 calories of protein during the normal processes that have to occur for us to digest and absorb the calories from that food, we are actually going to burn through around about 25 to 30, sometimes up to 35% of those calories during the normal processes. So essentially, that means that once you've eaten that 100 calories of protein, by the time your body is able to use it, you've already kissed goodbye to around about 1/3 of the calories consumed or contained in that protein. So what does this mean? This means that is really going to help you get more bang for your buck with your the energy that you take in. You're going to have less of that energy available for your body to use. So this is a really important thing that you want to get on top of. So the solution really here is to base all of your main meals around lean proteins. And the reason we say lean proteins is because, let's take beef mince for example. We can have 10-15% fat mince, or a steak for example. Let's consider a steak, a cut of beef steak which has more fat for example, a porterhouse or a ribeye steak, as opposed to a fillet steak. One of them has a much higher fat content, and as we just talked through, fats being 9 calories per gram, this means that that additional fat is going to bump up the calories and probably going to be more likely to take you away from fat loss unless you're really tightly controlling that and the calories contained overall. But yeah, basing all of your meals around proteins should be the first step to building any kind of structured meal. This is going to help you feel full. It's going to help you recover from your training sessions. It's going to really help you to stay on the right side of fat loss, because you're going to fill up with protein, which is going to be a third of it is just going to be burnt off in the normal way that we digest and absorb our food. So really strive to hit your protein targets. Whey protein shakes, for example, or if you're vegan, any kind of rice, pea alternative, for example. Protein shakes are a fantastic way and a fantastic food source to use to bulk up your protein. So just setting up your daily nutrition, for example, if we could take a protein shake as a snack to have throughout the day, or maybe a mid-morning snack, for example, or an evening snack, we can have 1 or 2 scoops of protein, easily bump up our protein intake, and this is a great source of food. So don't underestimate, protein is a fantastic source of food. Consider it less as a supplement and consider it as a really good source of food. So it's going to be highly satiating, which means it's going to keep you full, and it's going to help you to stay on the right side of your calorie target. So a super important point to note on protein is it's been proven that it's almost impossible for us to get fat from eating too much protein, whereas that is absolutely not the case with the other 2 macronutrients that we commonly eat, carbs and fats. Those can be readily stored as energy and converted to body fat, whereas protein, this is really not likely to happen. It's proven for very high protein intakes to be safe unless you have pre-existing issues with some of your vital organs, which many of you shouldn't have. Most of you shouldn't have. So excess protein is not a thing. You can probably not eat too much protein, because if you're eating a really high protein diet, you're going to struggle to overeat with other macronutrients. So definitely try and maximize the amount of protein that you're consuming each day. And just as a general guideline, I often recommend 2 grams of protein per kilogram of total body weight for men, and 1.5 grams of protein per kilogram of total body weight for women. So 1.5 times your body weight for ladies, 2 times your body weight in kilograms for men. So example, 100 kilogram male, you're going to times that by 2, and that will be 200 grams of protein. That is your protein target for the day. 100 kilogram female, we're going to times that by 1.5. So 150 grams of protein per day is your target. So really make sure that you try and plan your meals around protein. And that is, I can't tell you how much that is going to help you to stick to your calories. It's going to keep you full and really help you stay on the right side of fat loss. I cannot stress how important that is. So let's move on. As you can see, I mentioned that the macronutrients have a different effect metabolically on how we digest them. So protein, we can see up to 35% is burnt off during the normal digestion and absorption of that food. When we compare that to dietary fats and carbohydrates, these can be anywhere from around about 2%, and this depends on the types of foods we're eating. But as a rough estimate, around 5 to 15 at the absolute most percent of those calories in terms of dietary fats and carbs would be burnt off, in comparison to that protein bracket there, with up to 35% is burnt off when you eat those calories. So when we fill our diet with protein, we get so much more bang for your buck in terms of the energy. So definitely try and maximize your protein intake, and use your fats sparingly, and carbohydrates are therefore your kind of remaining calories. So protein, super important. Okay, let's move on to problem number 4, not prioritizing sleep and or a healthy sleep and wake cycle. Something that is often reported is a lack of energy, sometimes poor dietary control, and one of the biggest problems for controlling your diet is going to be a lack of good quality sleep and a solid routine with your sleep hygiene. So it's been proven that those who sleep around 5.5 hours in comparison to those who get a couple of extra hours sleep, you are going to lose more of your lean mass when you only sleep 5.5 hours versus 7.5 hours. And this is seen with fat loss dieting. So if you are losing weight and not sleeping very much, there's a much higher percentage that you're going to lose lean muscle tissue, and you're going to lose more lean muscle tissue than body fat when you aren't getting enough sleep. So if we want to create a good, lean, strong physique, then we need to really try and get on top of our recovery, and getting adequate sleep is going to be very, very important for that. Not only that, if you've ever had a really bad night's sleep, the next day you've probably noticed that your body really, really craves junk food. You're going to crave a high influx of calories. So that is your body basically, it's almost tricking you into consuming loads of calories in the attempt to get some more energy, wake you up a little bit. So be mindful, if you've had a poor night's sleep, those cravings can be a little bit out of control, and this is even more reason to try and stay on top of your meals. Have a good structure, so you have your food prepared, or you know exactly what your meals look like and what you should be eating, so that we're not just going to reach for a load of junk calories and again lose control of our diet, lose control of our goals. So getting adequate sleep is really going to help your body composition goals long term. Not only that, it's going to drastically improve your recovery and how you feel day to day, how you perform, and even things like your hormone production. We are going to perform much better with our training sessions when we have good quality sleep. So your body likes routine, and if possible, we want to always aim to be waking up within the same 30 minutes, 60 minutes probably at the most, 7 days a week. So for anybody who works shifts, for example, this can be really difficult, and unfortunately that's just the position you're in. Your sleep and wake cycle might be all over the place, but you can still make an effort to get good quality sleep. But for those of you who have a relatively normal routine, if you are waking up much later on the weekends, you probably find that it's when you go back to your normal wake up time in the week, for example, you're probably going to find that you really struggle to get up, you struggle to wake up, and that's generally just going to cause havoc with your sleep wake routine and cycle. So your body really likes to function like clockwork. So if you can get as much of a solid routine with your sleep and wake times as possible, make sure that we're unwinding appropriately in the evening, getting away from technology a couple of hours before bedtime. Me personally, I like to read before I go to bed, because this kind of removes too much going on in my brain, so it actually allows me to unwind before I go to sleep. And if I'm reading, I can't really be thinking about too much else, so I'm kind of focused on one thing. Just helps me to relax. It means I'm not looking at my phone, I'm not watching TV. Using things like the blue light filter on your phone, for example, we can set up our mobile phones to turn the screen. It tends to turn your screen like a shade of yellow, so that we limit the blue light. And blue light is going to be what we ideally want to wake us up, whereas in the evening we don't want lots of bright lights going on. We don't want too much technology. That's going to interfere with your body's melatonin production, and that is going to stop you from being able to unwind and get a restful, deep sleep at night. So try and prioritize your sleep and your recovery and your sleep cycle. Okay, so number 5, alcohol. Now, as I mentioned, our main macronutrients are protein, fats, and carbs. We commonly eat those, and often people don't consider alcohol and the calories contained in alcohol. Now, we talked about dietary fats being 9 calories per gram. Alcohol is the second highest macronutrient in terms of calories per gram, so it's 7 calories per gram. So this is very high in calories per gram. And not only that, but all of those calories, and they literally provide 0 nutritional value. And on top of that, they also make it much more likely for you to overeat. So I'm sure we've all been there when we've had a night out or a few drinks, and it's almost going to make you just crave eating when actually you're not even hungry. If we're a little bit drunk, for example, overeating, we tend to lose sight of what's important to us, and it's so much easier to just keep eating for the sake of it, just because alcohol is going to make us probably more likely to make some decisions which don't align with our goals. So we can track alcohol calories like any other food. For example, those of you using MyFitnessPal, I have nothing against any of you consuming alcohol. Potentially, we can consume alcohol every single day if we want to, and still lose body fat if we are 100% on top of our caloric intake, so our energy intake. Would I recommend that? Absolutely not. Alcohol is, as most people know, alcohol is a depressant, and consuming it too regularly or getting drunk too regularly is probably going to make you feel like shit. And it's no wonder, because alcohol is a depressant. It provides 0 nutritional value, more likely to overeat. It's more likely to impact your motivation and your willingness to train and your training performance in the coming days. It's going to make you feel like shit with hangovers. It's well known that I love a drink. I do try and limit, especially if my goal is fat loss. Then I know that alcohol is just, it's almost void for me, because I know that if I consume alcohol, it makes me more likely to want to overeat. My training's going to suffer. I'm not going to perform very well in the gym. So for that reason, I will try to avoid getting drunk. I might have a drink or two at the weekend, but I will be taking into account the calories contained in those drinks, and I will be making sure that is properly calculated, and I don't want those calories to just completely blow out my calorie target for the day. So be mindful that alcohol is high in calories and it offers no nutritional value for you, particularly where fat loss is concerned. So let's move on. Number 6, not consuming enough water for basic functions. So some of you might not know that the vitamins, for example, vitamins B and C, your body, those vitamins are water soluble vitamins. So they need water to be used in your body. Water, it's well documented. Everybody knows that we need water, but so many people struggle to drink enough water, or they just disregard how important water is. If you wake up in the morning and it takes you ages to wake up, your head's a bit cloudy, you can't really focus, you probably need more water. If you're not performing very well in the gym, you probably need more water. If you have achy, sore joints, you probably need more water. Water is going to also help you regulate your appetite. So you've probably seen sometimes people recommend, if you're hungry, drink some water, or before meals, drink water. There's usually things going around on social media about benefits of water. Sometimes they don't quite get it right, but make no mistake, water is so important, particularly where fat loss is concerned. It's going to help you perform better in the gym. There's a reason why bodybuilders, you see them chugging down water, and it's well documented that water helps your muscles to perform well. So we want the muscle cells to be properly hydrated, and that is also going to improve how your joints function, and it's going to help your recovery also, because water is going to be transporting or helping to transport the nutrients around your body, which is obviously important to recover and help your body post training. So I recommend that you consume, or aim to consume, if you're quite far from this, don't worry, we just want to try and aim to consume more and build up to consuming the appropriate amount of water. So 35 milliliters of water per kilogram of body weight each day. And my top recommendation is for you guys to drink a large amount of water as soon as you wake up. So once you've done your usual routine, whether it's using the toilet and weighing yourself, whatever it is, aim to drink a decent amount of water. So probably at least a pint of water. We want to consume that as soon as possible after waking up. This is really going to help you wake up faster. It's going to help your brain to switch on. It's going to help you with your focus. And the sooner we get that in, the quicker we're going to wake up, the more alert and better we're going to feel. And try to consume that before we caffeinate. So we want to hydrate before we caffeinate. And this is going to be really important. If you get headaches in the morning, for example, if the first thing you have is coffee and then you don't tend to drink much water, you probably get headaches in the morning, and making sure we're hydrated is the best way to overcome that. So if you aren't kind of staying on top of your water intake, you're also probably noticing that your urinations through the day are going to be a dark color, and what we can really aim for is clear urinations, and we want several clear urinations every day, and that is indicating that we are properly hydrated. So we don't need to pay too much attention to the exact amount we consume if we're just aiming to use those clear urinations as a indicator of how hydrated we are. So if you are having several clear urinations each day, then chances are you're hydrated. If you're not, then chances are you're dehydrated, and that is really going to hinder fat loss, and it's not going to help you regulate your appetite. So drink your water. Okay, number 7, not consuming enough fiber from fresh fruits and veggies. Now, fiber is a type of carbohydrate, and the benefits of fiber are often underestimated, especially for digestion and gut health. Fiber is between 2 to 4 calories per gram, depending on the type. So this is literally, in terms of the food that we can eat, this offers the lowest caloric value per gram of food. So there's a reason why people often say, eat your vegetables, fill up on vegetables. because this is giving us the most amount of food, or the best bang for buck in terms of the energy that we can eat. Fiber is super important for keeping you full as well. If any of you are diabetic, or if you know anybody who's a diabetic and they are not eating enough fiber, they are going to probably cause havoc with their blood sugar levels. So we want to, we can control your blood sugars when we swap out things like white bread, white rice for brown alternatives, whole grain alternatives. So this is a really good swap to help improve your gut health, but also to maximize the amount of food that we can eat for our total calorie target. So a really basic recommendation is to aim for 25 grams of fiber minimum each day. If you don't currently eat anywhere near that, what you may find is you may experience some gut issues if you just try and dump a hell of a load of fiber all of a sudden into your body. So we probably want to gradually increase that if you don't consume much at present. So fruits, veggies, whole grain carbs, try to eat different colors, different textures, and maximize that part of your diet. So if we're not eating the rainbow every single week, and by that I mean different colors, different textures, if we're not aiming to do that every single week, then we are really missing a trick when it comes to fat loss, because we get more food for the amount of calories that we consume. Okay, number 8. Now, from a coaching perspective, if you aren't checking in with me because you feel you haven't progressed, let's just think about this. This is a little bit counterproductive, because if you feel that you haven't progressed, that is absolutely fine. But the most important thing is that we try to understand and try to navigate why things haven't been working for you. So often people shy away from feeding back if they think that they're just stalling, or they might have even felt like they've gone backwards. I really want to know if that's the case, because that helps me to start asking the questions that you might need answers to. So please try and stay adherent with your check-ins, and remember that if we aren't progressing and I am your coach, then it's almost impossible for me to help you if we aren't checking in, if we aren't feeding back, if we aren't looking at what's going well, what might not be going so well. So try to stick to your check-ins, even if you feel like you've had an off week. And this just opens up the opportunity to be honest with yourself, and then we can aim to navigate your hurdles together. So I can ask questions, and the goal being to implement changes quickly so that we can get you right back on track, get you making progress. So please document your journey, feedback on what's going well, what isn't going so well, and try not to skip that part of the process, because that's really going to help me to help you. Okay, so number 9, not completing 3 strength training sessions each week. So strength training, this is an absolute fact. It elevates your metabolism, and this is seen for those of you who are new to strength training, or perhaps have had a bit of a layoff from regular strength training, you will benefit even more from this fact that your metabolism is going to be elevated post training for 24 to 48 hours, sometimes even longer, depending on the type of training we've done. So if we think about this, if we can train 3 days minimum per week, let's say we train every other day, we might have training day, rest day, training day, rest day, training day, rest day, rest day. That will make up 7 days. That means that we are constantly elevating your metabolism across the week, and that is going to just put you, I don't like the term fat burning mode, but that is going to elevate your metabolism and keep you on fire throughout the week, so that we're just constantly torching through calories. Combine that with your NEAT and your high step count, and absolutely no reason why, if we're not controlling calories appropriately, there's no reason why if we do that, that is just going to guarantee success for you guys. So often I talk about this with people when they're starting personal training. I like to say to people, look, we have to train 3 days minimum a week with weights, or at least training 3 days a week. Doesn't necessarily have to be resistance training, but resistance training is going to elevate your metabolism for longer, and we're going to get a more beneficial effect post-workout. So during that post-workout period, your metabolism is elevated better and for longer through strength training as opposed to cardiovascular training, for example. So please don't underestimate how and why those 3 minimum training sessions every week, staggered through your week, are so important. So try to make that non-negotiable. Plan it into your diary. Make sure that you know exactly when you're training, and make it effective and stay consistent with it. Also, try not to spend too much time just doing isolation movements. For example, bicep curls, leg extensions, leg curls. We want to get the best results from our training, so we need to include multi-joint movements. So this is compound movements, where we can challenge more muscles with one single exercise, as opposed to, as I mentioned, bicep curls, for example. We're just training one joint and one muscle. Let's focus on compound movements, get strong on compound movements, stay consistent, stay regular with your training, keep your metabolism elevated through strength training, and you will win. Okay, number 10, loosely estimating calories on weekends. This is something which for many of you may not be as important early on in your journey, but if we are striving to create a lean physique and we want the best results, we absolutely can't get there if we're just having untracked weekends, cheat days. This is just a ridiculous concept, to be honest. If you're rewarding yourself at the end of the week with a day of just completely losing sight of your goals, then what is the point in working hard 5 or 6 days a week, doing everything right, if you're just going to blow it out on the weekend? You can literally eat any particular food you want, as I've stated. You can drink alcohol, but we have to do it in a controlled manner. We have to be mindful of the calories. If you are not being mindful of your energy intake, this is science. This is proven to work. So anybody who tells you calories don't count, we just need to eat clean foods, anything like this, this is just absolute nonsense. And calories are king. Calories are what make the difference between success or not, especially for fat loss. We cannot lose weight without calorie restriction. So this is just basic, the law of thermodynamics. So that's what we call it. So, for example, if we have a calorie target of 2,000 each day, and across the week we're sticking to our 2,000 calories, on the weekend we go and eat 3,000 calories Friday night or Friday, 3,000 calories Sunday, Saturday, Sunday. All of a sudden, we've done well all week. We might have seen the weight drop. Come Monday, we're going to weigh in. We're going to have completely blown out our calories for the whole week. We're going to play catch up again Monday to Friday. So we want to avoid that. We want to be treating our weekends like every other day through the week. It doesn't matter if you eat different foods, but you still need to be tracking appropriately. So ideally, try to limit takeaways, because they're just going to be filled with fats. Potentially, you're gonna eat starters, desserts, just for the sake of kind of treating yourself. It's going to make it hard to track because you don't know what's in there. Ideally, just limiting takeaways can be the best way to avoid overeating from them. So if we are eating out or we are having takeaways, the solution really is try to be mindful of the calories that you're consuming. Try and build your meals when you eat meals out or order takeaways. Try and build your meals in the same way that you might cook for yourself. Consider the protein. Consider a low fat option. So often try and skip things which are heavy sauces, fattier types of meat, for example. And that way we can be a little bit more controlling of the energy intake. So you can soften the blow with perhaps doing an extra walk or an extra long walk, or make sure you train on the day that you might be eating a meal out or ordering a takeaway. Skip a meal, it's absolutely fine. Skip a meal, replace it with a protein shake. You can even do that a couple of times a day and just try and make your meals as small as possible to buy yourself some room for the evening meal that you might be consuming with your family or friends. You can go out for pizza and still stay within your calorie target if you are mindful of what you do for the rest of the day leading up to that, the day after it. This is why calorie cycling is such a good tool. Flexibly dieting is going to really help you manage your weekly calorie target, as opposed to blowing your calories out for the day and thinking, oh shit, I've completely messed up. And that flicks the switch where you then start eating ice cream and biscuits and you just overeat because you think you've ruined it. Think of your calorie target across the week. It makes zero difference if you eat those 3,000 calories, for example, on a Friday, if the rest of the week you are appropriately averaging out those calories. So make sure that we keep the protein high on those days. Make sure we try and get our protein in earlier in the day to try and keep us full. Use whey protein shakes or vegan alternatives, whatever it is that you like to consume. Use that as a tool to help you manage hunger leading up to the event and after the event, and you will have a much easier time having the occasional meal out or a takeaway with a couple of glasses of wine with your partner, for example. And if you do that, we can soften the blow and average that out across the week. But try to be mindful of your choices and try to reduce the frequency which you opt for takeaways, for example. So get cooking. Okay, not tracking your weekly average scale weight is next. So I posted about this the other day, and there's a slide coming up next which is going to explain what I'm talking about. But if we are just sporadically weighing ourselves, we can potentially, let's say worst case scenario, every time we weigh ourselves, if we do it every 3, 4, 5 days and we just see our weight going up, we could be missing a trick here and not seeing the fluctuations appropriately. And we could be almost tricking ourselves into thinking that we are gaining weight when actually we could have just weighed in on a slightly higher day, because your weight is always going to be fluctuating. So for those of you who are using the scales and checking in, which I do always recommend because it makes it much easier to gauge your progress, so your rate of loss, we can gauge that much easier when we're constantly averaging out your weigh-ins and we're doing that 7 days a week. It's much harder to see those changes and assess them properly if we're just sporadically weighing in. Obviously, if we do it over time, we're going to see trends eventually, but we can pick up on the trends much easier and assess progress much better when we weigh in regularly. So try to stick with the same routine. Weighing in the morning after you've used the toilet, before you start to consume any food or drink. So ideally, just try and get straight up, use the toilet, go into the scales, note your weight, and that's it. Then you can start your eating or drinking, and that way we're controlling as many of the variables as possible, and we're much more accurately going to be able to assess your progress. So you don't need to weigh in, but it certainly helps. So as you can see here, let's take person A as the red dots here. So let's say they only weigh in once a week, for example, and every day they're trying to lose weight, but person A weighs in once a week, and all they see is the numbers going up, even though they're doing everything right, and that is just going to be demotivating, and it's going to make you feel a little bit crappy, like you're getting nowhere. But versus person B, let's say person B is the blue dots here. Person B weighs in every day, and they can actually put together some clearer data on what is actually happening with their body. So person B sees so many regular fluctuations, but we can quickly start to see the trend and the direction that we're heading. So we're going to gradually see that average weight come down, and this is why I give all of you guys a spreadsheet to track your average weight, so it does it for you, because that is what we're concerned with. If we're trying to lose weight, I don't care if you fluctuate 3-4 kilograms across the week, as long as we see the average weight going down, then we know that we're doing something right, because that is what energy balance is all about. It's doing what gets us results on average and doing it consistently. So it is probably problematic if we are seeing huge fluctuations in your weight. This probably means that we're being a bit too extreme with the flexible dieting approach. It could be a case of overeating and restricting a little bit more than what we would like. So we want to see some level of consistency with your weighings, but please understand that we are going to see huge fluctuations across the week and across a phase of fat loss. But we're looking for that trend line to be moving down, and we can be a little bit more comfortable with our efforts if we track this a little bit more regularly. And as I said, ideally we do this 7 days a week, so we get the best idea. It doesn't matter too much if you only do it 2 or 3 days a week, but we can much easier assess the progress when we do it more regularly, and we get a more accurate representation of what is happening. Okay, so almost there. Number 12, not understanding hunger cues and how fat loss works. So let's think about it. If we're trying to lose body fat, fat loss is, in the simplest form, it is extremely slowed down attempts at starvation. So when we're losing fat, we want to create a consistent energy deficit, which means that our body is just short of the amount of energy that we need to maintain our weight. So this is essentially how starvation occurs. We don't have enough energy to maintain our body weight, and we lose weight. So when we do this slowly over a period of fat loss, then we see the weight drop. So often people don't understand that with that very slow starvation across the fat loss phase, we need to experience some hunger. So nobody has ever lost huge amounts of weight without experiencing hunger and becoming comfortable. As you go through a fat loss phase, we need to become a little bit more comfortable with actually experiencing hunger. So if we're constantly, if you think about it, if we're constantly full and we're never hungry, this is likely going to mean that we're probably gaining weight. If we're always eating to the point of being absolutely stuffed, chances are you are putting on weight. If we're always eating and we're having staggered cues of hunger throughout the day, or definitely across the week, this is your body's signal to you that you are in a energy deficit and you are going to be on track for fat loss. So don't freak out with a little bit of hunger here and there. Ideally, we want to be feeling hunger cues before we eat, and we want to potentially be going to bed with a little bit of hunger at night if fat loss is our goal. So don't be scared of being hungry. It's something which you might need to get a little bit more accustomed to. And especially as we get into the deep end of fat loss, if we're trying to get really lean, this is something which you absolutely have to understand. So you have to understand that a little bit of hunger is okay, and that is the right signals from your body to let you know that you are in an energy deficit. If we're always full, chances are we're overeating and we're not achieving fat loss. So yeah, you need to acknowledge that if you have gained weight, this is because you've been eating more than you needed, and that is the opposite end of fat loss. So if we're always stuffed and we're always full and we never like to be hungry, chances are that means you've gained weight. And again, this is the basic laws of thermodynamics. That means we're in a energy surplus, and we're not going to achieve fat loss like that. So be okay with a little bit of hunger here and there, and understand that if you are experiencing hunger and you're experiencing that regularly and it's staggered across your day and across your week, that means that you are going to be burning through body fat, and you are going to win with fat loss. So try to embrace it. Don't panic when you're experiencing some hunger. Okay, so on the flip side of this, we have a lot of you are going to be tracking your calories, and sometimes when we use technology and track our calories, this can take us away from our instinctive cues and our intuitive eating approach. So intuitive eating is a little bit more based around you're listening to your body and listening to those hunger cues and those feelings of fullness as we eat. What we don't want to do, if we have a lot of weight to lose, for example, we can actually be quite aggressive with our calorie deficit in the earlier stages to get a head start and really start to win the game whilst your motivation is high. Let's say, for example, I recommend you're to eat 2,000 calories, and you eat all of your meals and snacks, and you've tracked everything, and your calories are sat around 1,800 for the day. And at 9 o'clock at night, you're panicking and thinking, oh shit, I've got 300 calories still remaining. If you're not hungry, you need to listen to that signal from your body, and you don't always need to eat up to your calorie target. So understand that if we're trying to achieve fat loss, we want to try and stay under our calorie target, and some days you may be super hungry, some days not as hungry. So don't be scared of eating under your calorie target. Chances are your feelings of satiety are going to balance out. You might not be as hungry one day, you might be a little bit hungrier the next day, and you might go over your target a little bit. But if possible, we want to try not to just constantly disregard those hunger cues and focus too much on the technology, so we don't always eat up to the calorie target when we are not hungry. So that is the top thing to remember there. This is what we're talking about, is if you're not hungry, we don't always have to eat up to a certain amount, because if fat loss is the top priority for us, then understand that if we can reduce those calories a little bit, that is going to speed up our results. So we need to kind of not take either end of this to any extreme. And so just remember, if you have calories remaining at the end of the day and you have controlled your hunger appropriately, this means you've done well. This means you've likely spaced your meals out properly. It means you've likely filled up on lots of high fiber food, so you've had lots of veggies and whole grain stuff to fill you up properly. So you've done well if you can get to the end of the day, be under your calorie target, have some calories remaining, and not feel hungry. This means that you are really, really on top of managing your diet and your the calories that you're consuming. So congratulate yourself. That means that you've done well, and you can go to bed without too much hunger, and yeah, that means that is demonstrating that you are managing your calorie intake appropriately. So well done if that is the case. So on the flip side of eating up to your calorie target, we want to also make sure that we're not going too low and having really poor energy levels when it comes to exercise. So not only is the kind of over restriction cycle going to probably lead to binges with let's say you over restrict through the week. Friday comes around, you feel like absolute shit because you've been starving yourself of energy all week. The beers come out, or you get a chance to go out for a meal. You are much more likely to want to just gorge because your body is craving energy. So we want to really try and attempt to strike the right balance where we have the appropriate energy levels to train whilst also being mindful of our goals, especially if the goal is fat loss. We absolutely have to try and strike the right balance between experiencing some hunger, being satisfied, and also having the right energy levels to complete our training. So when we're in a negative energy balance and we're working towards fat loss, we may need to get quite smart with how we are timing our meals so that we can feel energized for our training, we can recover appropriately, and we can really try and spread those calories around our day to effectively help us to get the best training sessions that we can. And so cutting calories too low is not recommended. It will come around and bite you in the ass later on in the week. For example, if you're just constantly trying to undereat and you're just desperately trying to speed up your fat loss results, try to have a little bit of patience and understand that this takes some trial and error. It may take you a few attempts at eating at different energy intakes. For example, I may set you up at 2,000 calories and we may just experience that that isn't enough of an energy deficit, or what's probably more likely is you're underreporting the amount that you're eating. So I might have to give you a lower target, but we don't want to just excessively slash calories, because that is going to come at the cost of how you feel, how you perform, your focus, your recovery, your sleep. All sorts of things are going to be negatively impacted if we are slashing calories too low. So probably the biggest thing is going to be how that negatively impacts the amount that you move and how well you perform in the gym. So you are going to subconsciously move much less if you don't have the appropriate energy intake. So this is seen in anybody who gets to a point where they are extremely lean. Your body will fight back to preserve energy if you're not eating much. So subconsciously what happens is we start to really struggle to move. We're going to be our body's going to try and encourage us to be a little bit lazy, because it's a survival instinct. It's trying to protect us from excessive energy expenditure or costly metabolic processes. So that's when we see things like hormones start to be down-regulated, when we're under eating way too much. So your body will try and automatically do this. So this is why it's important to strike the right balance with your energy intake and your energy expenditure. So by striving for the targets that I provide for you, we should be in the ballpark, and give or take a little bit, we may need an adjustment here and there, but try not to cut too low, try not to eat up to it just for the sake of it, and we'll land somewhere in the middle and strike a good balance. So that is the main aim to win the fat loss game. We want to really try and find the right balance for us, and that may take a little bit of trial and error, as I said, but the goal is to find that balance and understand what it takes for you to create that balance with things like your step count, your energy intake. If there's meals that you like to regularly consume and you find that when you eat those meals in those amounts and you repeat that, try and find that appropriate strategy for you, try and strike the right balance, and just then try and get as consistent as possible with doing that day in, day out, week in, week out, even across the weekends. Try and stay as balanced as you can with not overshooting it and not undershooting it. So this is a picture taken from the nutrition book that I will have provided for you, and this is the breakdown of the total daily energy expenditure. So if we undereat too much, if we're constantly eating below your BMR, so this is the basic amount of energy that you need, basic bodily functions are going to slow down. And this is what we often see with people struggling to lose weight. Sometimes if you are severely undereating, you're going to really struggle to be exercising appropriately. You're going to probably find that you're just not performing very well, and basic functions within your body are going to be slowed right down. This is just going to be an automatic process, and that is going to have an impact on things like your NEAT. So if you are trying to, or going through this cycle of over restriction and not having very good energy levels, just bear in mind that we want to hit the sweet spot. So we don't want huge calorie deficits. We just want to undereat our maintenance level just a little bit. So depending on the individual and the goal and the amount of weight to lose and the time frame and all types of variables which are different from person to person, we want to just find that sweet spot, not restrict too much, have good energy for training, feel like we have energy to go and get the steps in and go and walk. If we don't get this right, your body will automatically try and regulate this for you, and as I said, you will probably notice that subconsciously you just become a little bit lazy. Even things like fidgeting, you will not fidget as much. You will want to sit down at any given opportunity, and you will just gravitate towards that automatically if we are severely undereating. So this is why we want to get this balance right. We want to understand how these elements of the total daily energy expenditure are made up. So make sure you've read this part in the book and that you understand it. And obviously when we combine that with training and maximizing your NEAT and hitting the right sweet spot with our calorie target, we will win the fat loss game. Okay, finally we got to the last one. We're just over an hour, so I know it's dragged on a little bit, but we're almost there. Focusing too much on the perfect macronutrient ratio. So the current evidence supports the fact that if we are equating calories for calories, let's compare two different diets. If protein is high for both of those diets, and one diet uses a high carb, low fat approach, and the other diet uses a low carb, high fat approach, the fat loss results that you are going to achieve, if the calories are equated and the protein is high as a constant between those two diets, either one can still achieve fat loss results. There is no benefit to having a keto diet, for example. Keto is something often sold to you as the magic, or intermittent fasting, whatever it is, any particular type of diet. The ratio of high or low carbs or fats, it is irrelevant. What is most important, which is why I stress the energy balance part of your focus, the fundamental nutritional pyramid, the base level is energy balance. So this is the most important thing, and this decides whether you're going to gain weight or lose weight or stay the same. When calories are equated on various diets, protein is high. It makes zero difference whether you fill most of your calories through carbs or versus high fat. This is largely down to preference. You ideally are going to base your carbohydrates around how much you train, probably, because this is your preferred source of energy. But we just want to strike a balanced approach. So don't stress whether you eat way more carbs on a certain day, and another day your meals might be higher in fat. We must control the total caloric intake as a priority. Keep the protein high, and then it makes zero difference how you distribute the rest of those calories, whether it's mostly carbs or mostly fats. It makes zero difference. So you can be flexible with your approach towards nutrition when you consider that calories are king. Protein, we want that high regardless, and then we're going to be in line with our goals. That allows us and affords us lots of flexibility when it comes to, let's say we're out of the house, we have to eat whatever we have available to us. It doesn't matter if we are not going to hit the targets that I've given you for fats and carbs. As long as the calories are there, we're trying to eat high protein meals. The exact distribution of those carbs and fats can be whatever you want, and that is largely down to preference. Some people may absolutely love a keto diet because they might just want to eat things like nuts, bacon, eggs, avocado, this type of stuff. Other people, if you like carbs, fill most of those calories with carbs and eat in a way that is aligned with your preferences so that you can stick to it. But just understand that the exact macronutrient ratio in terms of high carb or high fat, it makes zero difference to fat loss when the calories are in the right place and we're eating a high protein diet. Okay, so that is all 15 points covered. Now I want you to hopefully have a score by now. So out of 15 points there, which ones are you taking full control of at the moment? If you're missing out on any of those points, you are really missing some probably easy to implement wins. So you can focus a little bit more on the basics when we know which of those areas we might need to give a bit more attention to, and those can be some really small changes which offer the biggest return on your investment. So think about those areas as low-hanging fruit, because they're all easily within your reach. So just a few small tweaks can really drastically improve those areas, whether it's planning your meals, being a bit more consistent with your bedtimes and your sleep. Hydration is a huge one. Protein target, getting your steps in. All of these things are really simple areas that we can manipulate, and we should be manipulating and taking full advantage of for us to achieve the best possible fat loss results. So don't overcomplicate things without first tackling the very, very fundamental basics. And that's what a lot of these points are. They're very basic things that we want to take advantage of, and things which are heavily researched. This is all evidence-based stuff. So a lot of this stuff, or all of this stuff, is supported with lots of experience, lots of research, and there's a reason why I pull people back to the basics all the time, and that is because the basics have always worked, they will always work, and when you do that, you don't have to buy into ridiculous extremes. We don't have to do silly diets. We understand that we can remove any stress around eating out, having a takeaway here and there, drinking alcohol, eating chocolate. Get back to basics. Calories are king. Eat a high protein diet. Move. Drink your water. Just really focus on the quality of your food as often as possible, and recover well. So those are some really basic areas. So Hopefully by now there is a few of those that stick out to you, and you will have realized that there may be some areas which can be immediately improved. So your goal is to choose, I've just realized I've spelt choose wrong, but choose 2 to 3 areas which you have noted need improvement, and aim to implement changes to those areas quickly. So try to get straight on the front foot. If you're not drinking enough water, go out, buy yourself a water bottle. Make sure you can implement these things quickly, and you will start winning. Once you're feeling more confident and you're starting to see some results from changing and implementing those, it can just be one thing. If you notice that there's one area which you think can be drastically improved, focus on that one thing, just one step at a time. Aim to implement these changes, and then go back to what else can you implement. So make sure that you're aware of which areas that you need to improve on, and that is your goal. Those are simple action steps that you can take. So a little bit more focus and attention to detail within those areas, and that is it. You can start to win. You can start to make better progress, and that will elevate your success with fat loss. So that's what this is all about. This is all about fat loss. All of these points are important for fat loss, and that is why all of these points are included. And this is, in my experience as a coach, these are areas that I see people not implementing properly, and it slows down their results. So we've talked a lot about these different points, and the best way that you can start to get better at this stuff is to be a little bit more aware of the importance of good habits. So I'm going to be recording another video and giving you guys a bit of a habit tracking challenge. So this is something that I would like you to also take part in at some stage. Once you've started your coaching and you find your feet, I want you to get stuck into the habit tracking side of things. But this book is one of my favorite books that I've read recently. So James Clear is the author. Atomic Habits is the book. This is a really easy to read. It's a good read, and this will help you to get clear on the psychology behind habit changes. So you can really start to use habits to your power and to your advantage. Once you have read this book, hopefully you'll have a much easier kind of plan of action to implement some of your challenges, and help you to overcome some of the problems that you come across with staying consistent with doing the right things, which help you improve your body, help you improve your strength and your fitness and your diet, anything health and fitness related. When we're really good with habits, we can better stay consistent, and we can just have an easier time sticking to all the things we know we need to stick to. So I'd highly recommend you read the book. You can buy this on Amazon. You can get it on a Kindle or whatever it might be. However you like to read, you can get the audio book. So I would thoroughly recommend you read this book, because it's super valuable. So we're at the end of the presentation, but I just want to remind you guys that any of these changes, they take conscious action. So none of your results are going to be achieved by magic. We don't just stumble across achieving a really good fat loss result. It takes conscious action every single day, and hopefully you've made it to the end of this video, because this is probably the most important point. If these changes which you want are important to you, you will find the time. If they're not, what you will find is excuses. You will be shying away from the hard work that's involved to get you results. So I'm here to support you through any of these challenges. I'm here to suggest things if you're struggling with any of these areas, so please let me know. But just remember, this requires consistent action. It is not going to happen by magic. You need to be on the front foot. You need to understand all of these areas and why they're so important, but then you need to take action. You cannot just expect to stumble across good results. You have to be willing to learn. You have to be willing to admit that things that you've done in the past might not have served you very well, and you have to be willing to take action on the next steps. So if you have a list of areas that you've noted that you aren't doing very well in at the moment, then your next step is to action at least one of those areas as quickly as possible and start getting on top of all of those areas. So I hope this has been helpful. I know it's dragged on a little bit now, so hopefully you made it to the end and you found value in this. If you did, please let me know. This is the first video of this kind that I've recorded. I know that at the moment I'm not too great at this whole video thing, but hopefully I've explained some of these points well enough and kind of helped you dig a little bit deeper into some of the areas you might need to improve. So ultimately that is my goal. I want to help you improve, and I want to help you get there in the easiest, least stressful way possible. So I really hope this video has helped you to get there. So let me know if it was helpful, and I will see you guys in the next video. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.